So, hi guys, I hope you're having a great day thus far. So, I want to talk to you about my background a little bit. And so, here we go. I am so glad that I do not look like what I've been through because I've been through a lot. So, I'm the oldest of five siblings. One of my brothers, he passed due to a car accident. He had a different mother, but we shared the same father. And for the most part, I grew up, in a two-part household. My father was there, and my mother. But I don't know why the circumstances happened, but my father, then no longer was with us as far as in the household. So I don't know the backstory to that. But once my father left, it got, really tumultuous for me. I was physically abused. I was sexually abused. I was missing a lot of school. I was sick a lot because I have asthma, so I was constantly always in the hospital. And some of it might have been from stress from, a lot that was going on at a young age and, not having anything being explained to you. So I didn't really know what was going on. So then we, because of a lot of absenteeism, and the schools being concerned because I went to the schools. Yes, and I had, let the schools know what was happening. And then we, became foster kids for a while in DCF custody. And before my grandmother took us in. And that was a long process, and that was stressful on me. As the oldest, I had the role of a parent. I played the role of a parent. And, that I hated it because I wanted to be a kid too. And I wasn't able to be a kid. So when we got to my grandmother's home, the environment and everything was so different. I was even more sickly than ever because, they smoked cigarettes. That was affecting my asthma. And so I was sick a lot from the cigarette smoke over there. Plus, just a hard upbringing, I feel like my childhood was limited because of, the responsibilities that I had, being the oldest. And, I had to babysit a lot. I had to cook. I had to clean. I had to help them with their homework. I had to wash clothes. Sometimes I had to wash these clothes by hands. I had to bathe them, do their hair, and all of these things, and again, yes, my grandmother took me in. There were two uncles in the household too, but it was more of me being the responsible one for my siblings. So that was bearing a lot of weight on me. I became resentful. I felt, unwanted, unappreciated. I was not protected. I had a lot of insecurities. I hated my life. I was embarrassed, for my upbringing. And, when I saw the difference between the living situations of me and a lot of my friends, that bothered me because we grew up poor. And when the kids had their Segas and, all their Nintendos and everything, and I didn't have because we now live with my grandmother. And, our Christmases consisted of Globe Santa. We never got any actual real gifts but Globe Santa. And the same gifts every single year. So I didn't look forward to my Christmases. I didn't look forward to birthdays because they stopped being celebrated. Again, because we were now, in a different environment with different upbringing, and it just was not the same. So even though I made a lot of friends, and I had, like I said, a limited childhood because aside from all the responsibilities I had, I had, that I did not have that much time to spend with the friends. So, of course, I became a little defiant. I would skip. I would hide sometimes so that when they were calling me that I wouldn't get called in earlier so I can do something to leave them to do it. I'm like, listen, there's all these adults in the house. I'm going to go and play. Let them take care of these kids. I'm going to have fun. So, I would sometimes, hide and on purpose so I wouldn't have to take on these responsibilities. But listen, hey, I did what I had to do to be a kid. And then so eventually, let me see, we moved back with my mother like in my later teen years, and it still, was like I had to take care of the kids because, you know, for whatever reason, she was in her room for months. She barricaded herself in her room for months, and so I had to take on the role again as a parent to my siblings. I do not know what that was all about. Again, I didn't understand. I never asked questions, but I still had to deal with these kids. So making sure they went to school, making sure they did their homework, making sure I got myself to school, and doing all what I needed to do so I can graduate. Then I finally graduated. I had a son. By the time I graduated, I had my son, and he was 1 year old, and he walked across the stage with me. So that was a blessing. That was good, And then afterwards, shortly after I graduated, and everything, I wound up getting into a shelter so that me and my son can, have our own. And he was 1 year old at that time, so I needed my own space. So I became, into the shelter. I got into the shelter. Was in that shelter for 16 months. Oh, that was hard. I had to drop out of college. I went to college for accounting, but it was so exhausting, so hard, stressful. Oh my goodness. And it was not having a car, being a single parent, having a small child, the rules and regulations and restrictions and everything you had from the shelter. I was just like, you know what? So I dropped out of school because it was just too much for me. And I focused on getting my home first so that I could, have a better place for me and my son to live. So I did that. That was a 16-month journey, because I didn't want to raise my son in the projects anymore. I grew up all my life, so I was adamant. So I kept rejecting a lot of places because I didn't want to live in the projects anymore. And that was one of my reasons why it took so long. Then I finally got my Section 8, and I got my first apartment by the time I was 22 years old with my son. And so I've been on my own ever since. I've been on my own ever since. And then, when I was 24, my father died. So we had to go get him from Cincinnati, Ohio. And we took a road trip, me and my aunts and cousins. We went to go get him, and when we brought him back, he only had like a few days left before he was going to, go. And he died in my arms at the hospital. Yeah, that was so hard on me. He literally died, took his last breath right in my arms. We were crying and holding each other and rocking back and forth, telling each other we loved each other before his last breath. And yeah, that was really hard. That was really hard on me. So he's been gone all these years. I haven't had a father all those years. And then my job that I held at Filene's Basement, right, before, they fired me because I was like, listen, my father's dying. I need to take some time off and go get him. And so I need that time off, right? And they were giving me the hardest time. So I said, well, I'm going to go because my father's dying, so I don't care. So I left. When I came back, they fired me. And then I said, well, I'm going to sue you guys. And once they started hearing me talking about lawsuits, because, again, they fired me because I went to go get my father, they rehired me. So I worked for them for the next day, which would have been Friday. I worked for them till Friday. When Friday came, I got my check and I quit. I was like, and my family was like, no, you still can sue them and all this stuff. And I was like, listen, I'm grieving for the loss of my father. I don't have the strength. I don't have the energy. I kind of really do not care. As long as I got my last check and everything or whatever, I'm good. I don't really care. But but then, I've held a lot of nice jobs. I've held a lot of nice jobs working in hospitals, working in clinics, physical therapy clinics, being a PCA. And then I went to hair school, got my cosmetology license, and I've been in the hair industry for like 17, 18, almost 20 years. I was in the hair industry. I used to work outside of my house as well, um, because there was a lot of freaking sabotage in these hair salons. Uh, Taking walk-ins, undercutting me, or whatever. It was just so much pettiness, cattiness, childishness, unprofessionalism going on in some of these salons. The only time I had great experiences when I was not in the black hair salons. That's a shame. So, afterwards, when I started to work from home, though, after I left these crazy salons and worked from home, it was well. I was doing so well. I was so happy that I was on my own in my own space. But then the clients there, they started to get comfortable. And then they started to, not want to show up on their time. They started to think that we were cool and we was chilling. They could just come whenever they felt like coming. And when I'm like, no, this is business first. And whatever your relation to me, friend, family, whatever, afterwards. This is business. And so a lot of people didn't like the fact that they couldn't get over on me and play me. So eventually it dwindled down. And I wound up not having a job. And I was like, oh, wow, because I left corporate so many years ago. It's like, oh, my gosh. So when I was in the church, I was a member of this church for like 6-7 years. I was on the church choir, and I was an usher, and I loved being an usher. Oh, that was so dope. I really loved being an usher, working for the Lord, doing that work. That was so like, elating to me. I loved it. And the pastor at the church at the time, she wound up stepping in and, being like, my provider. She provided for me for 3 years straight. Like, I got a weekly allowance or sometimes a bi-weekly allowance. I would get paid sometimes twice in a week. For 3 whole years, she took care of me because I didn't qualify. It was going to take me a minute, for the training and all that if I needed to go back to corporate. And I really didn't want to go back to corporate. So I lost my car. I lost job. I had no money. I had nothing. And she wound up stepping in, being, my provider. And, she made it work. She helped me pay my bills, take care of my son, get uniforms for school for him. She helped me, do everything, gave me allowances so I can go out and take him out to eat, to bowling, movies, whatever, buy him clothes, treat ourselves out. So that was a blessing, like I said, and that happened until I left the church. Then, after I left the church, that's a whole nother story. I'll tell you something about that if being led. But once I left, I worked for the state. I wound up getting a job. I worked for the state, Mass Health, doing insurance. And I did that for a while. And then after I did that, I got into the human services field, working with adults with, mental disabilities or challenges. And that was like my best job. My passion was hair, but I really loved working in the human services field with these clients. These clients really showed me what true love is, what unconditional love is. These clients was like my family. They became my family because I got something from them that I never got from my actual blood relatives, which is love, respect, decency. They saw me for who I was. I didn't get, judged and ridiculed and looked down upon or none of that. I was accepted for me. And that was like a breath of fresh air. So liberating to feel like you're seen, like you're wanted, like somebody can see you and hear you, And throughout my childhood, I did get counseling, but that didn't work because we first started off with family counseling, but then being told before you get into that counseling session to not tell, the counselor what's going on in the household, yeah, I was in the sessions, not speaking. So then they had to stop the family council. And it was the same thing was told when I went individually, but I didn't listen. And then when I started to tell them things, you know, it was like they were looking at me like I was crazy. All they wanted to do was dope me up with drugs and stuff. And I'm like, I don't want this stuff. You know, they did not help me. I really felt like they couldn't understand me. I needed therapy for like I needed a therapist, I shall say, for post traumatic syndromes or like trauma or whatever. I needed some type of therapist like that specialized in trauma, because I don't know if these people did or not, but they could not help me. And I started to feel a little insecure and less than. They were not helping me. I again, I didn't feel heard. They were making me just feel like, listen, let me get up out of here. I didn't feel comfortable, and even though I would switch therapists from time to time, go to different therapy offices, I still didn't feel, like, let me, you know what I'm saying, leave these places. I don't think they can help me. So I didn't have the experiences and get the help that I felt that I needed from these, counselors, because I couldn't stand the fact that it just felt like I was being judged. I was being looked down on them. And yes, so I did get therapy and stuff throughout my life, but I just didn't feel like it worked. So now, the human services field, that job was so, the managers, the supervisors, they were giving me the most hardest times. They made it, and they were trying to get me out of there, but I was not quitting. So COVID rolls around, and when COVID rolls around, we got a chance to, get the unemployment, and I got all, the benefits and stuff from them. But when the world opened back up, they avoided me. They played me. They didn't answer my phone calls. They didn't answer my emails. So I had to physically go down there. When I went down there, they told me, oh, we laid you off. And I'm like, what? I got laid off during COVID. And so they were like, we can give you a job at a different site where it'll be less hours in a different site, but we can do that for you, or we can give you, or you can collect unemployment. And so I just got off of unemployment, and I was like, no, I was ready to go back to work. So I took what they gave me, but it was only, 2 days a week. 2 days I was working out of the week. We got paid bi-weekly, and that just wasn't cutting it. And that's when I became doing a lot of the delivery jobs that I do, Uber Eats, Instacart, Shipt, all the delivery apps that I have. But I had recently just quit Uber Eats. You can see the video for that. And now I'm just doing the other delivery jobs that I have left remaining. And now I am working here on my YouTube channel. And I'm hopeful that you guys will help me grow this channel, that you would support me, that you would, show up, like, comment, bond with me, share your experiences with me, and let's get this thing popping. Let's get this thing on the road. So if this resonated with you, if you liked my story, give me a thumbs up, comment, like, share it if you feel led. But let's hear from you guys. And so thanks for tuning in. And until next time, blessings.